every other podcast does a top 10 list. Why the hell not, right?
Exactly.
So this is our top list of games that we hope to and would like to play and talk about on the podcast. I'm not going to put a time limit on this because this is a lot of games, and to be beholden to this list would be kind of a nightmare.
Does anyone here know how to count?
So we'll do this lightning round.
Yeah, so a couple sentences about why you like the game, why you think it'd be good for us, and if anyone has anything they want to interject, feel free to do
Just
so.
roll it around the table. I like it.
Yeah. So I guess we'll start with my number 10. That would be Coyers, the Quultimate Edition, which is the one that I have. So dumb that they do that, but I guess you need to have brand stabilization or something. Coyers was the first game that we played in person after the pandemic. And I say after the pandemic, but
when we first got back together.
Mm-hmm. So I believe it was John and Sam over at my house playing Coyers. Now, we have a history with Coyers as well.
Mm-hmm. I think that was the first time I played it.
So Chris and John and I, and even Jeff, we have a history. When our good friend Paul passed away and we went to his funeral, we stayed overnight in a hotel because it was
far enough away.
It was far enough away, and obviously we're gamers. We're going to bring some games with us.
As was Paul, so it was fitting. It was the right thing to do.
And so Coyers just happened to be one of the games that we brought, and for whatever reason, we had a lot of fun with it and pretty much played it the entire night.
Was Coyers the one where we made the dice cage out of bananas?
We were in a room full of bananas. There was a huge pile of bananas because we were playing in the kitchen, like the breakfast nook for the hotel. Nook. Yeah.
So bananas, I have this severe aversion to bananas. They cause me migraines. And Chris thought it was funny to keep opening the drawer with the bananas in it and wafting it in my direction.
I think that was more John than me. I wasn't near the door.
That doesn't sound like me. That sounds more like you, Chris.
That sounds like Chris.
All right, maybe it was Paul.
That's terrible.
All right, so my number 10 is Coyers. Anyone have any thoughts?
I got the original Coyers tin, which was the single most inconvenient way to store a game ever. Because, first of all, you were worried about banging up the tin because it would bend. And on top of that, it wasn't the right shape anywhere else.
It was a cube. It was a standard cube, and it had printed on it the sides of the...
So the logos were pretty good looking.
I think wasn't it like the dragon die that was printed on it?
Yeah. So it was a good looking can, and if that was the only game you own, or if you put it in its own little special spot, it would actually look very nice. But the fact that you had to try and pile it in with your other games was crazy. But there's enough crazy in the dice roll that you can't take the game terribly seriously, but at the same time, there's a lot of fun to do.
And it's really aggressive, but again, in that way that you have to be, like you're forced into aggression. It's not like you're choosing to be aggressive. It just, you roll your dice and you have to attack. And so we talked about conflict in Nexus Ops. For the people that are conflict averse, this is a very approachable way to get into conflict.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so John, your number 10 is Table Battles.
Table Battles, that's a Amabel Holland game that's out of her game company whose name I can't recall at the moment. Holland Spiel, thank you very much.
Her last name.
Yes, you're right. Very avant-garde design company. She creates some really great games. Table Battles has this historic aspect to it, which I like, and you'll actually see that sort of come up later on in my list. But it's called Table Battles, but it's a dice game. It's not really like battling, but there's this sort of interesting... seize the initiative, take control of the game that you can only hold on to for so long, and at some point you have to give that up in order to make progress. And that is the magic sauce that really makes the game work. Without that, it would just be a plain old cheeseburger, but this magic sauce on it makes the game really come to life. And I actually got the print and play version of it, which was $12 online. It's real easy to make with some card sleeves and get some normal old dice and some matchsticks, and you're all set. And it's just a lot of fun. And we've covered Dinosaur Table Battles, which has a different kind of action going to it than Table Battles does, which celebrates battles in history, and there's a whole bunch of expansions for it. But it's if you like anything historic, it's kind of neat from that perspective. If you like chucking dice at each other, it's really neat that way as well. And the way it's lined up actually makes the history work and makes this sort of how do I control the play aspect to it work really well. So that's why I would love to get that on the table.
Yeah, we as you mentioned, we did cover dinosaur table battles, so you can kind of give that one a listen to prime yourself.
I don't think I've ever played that.
You haven't played either one.
One of them?
I don't think I've played either one.
Yeah.
So we have a guy in our group that is very big on dinosaurs. So I noticed you pulled it out at the May Gaming marathon. We you had that out for the dinosaurs, but I can bring the game with the historic battles.
Yeah,
as
you
well.
should.
Yeah, I'll do that.
And we
I'll
could
throw that in the
probably,
car.
because they're 2-player games, both
Yep.
of them, so we could play
4 people can sit down at the table. And we can mix
do
and match.
a game of each and kind of compare and contrast them. So number 10 for Sam, Game of Thrones.
Yeah, and this is I think there's a couple different Game of Thrones board games.
You're talking about the old school Fantasy Flight up in everyone's face.
This is the Fantasy Flight where everybody controls a different kingdom and you duke it out, and there's politicking and backstabbing and armies marching around, and it's a very conflict heavy game, which doesn't match perfectly well to our group, but
Well, Ed has a lot of experience with this one, and he I had mentioned this was on our list, and he is very much looking forward to joining us for that one. I think it actually plays best with 5
It does
as
play
well.
best with
Pile of
5
people.
Yeah.
So
You really want one person for each kingdom.
So it's like a dudes on a map game with
Yes.
dice.
Yeah, I believe there's dice. There's a lot of it's dudes on a map. There's dice. There's cards. You got to worry about logistics and paying for your people and managing.
there's a lot
things.
of dudes on a map, but if I recall, I don't think any of us have played it.
I have not played
have
it.
not.
I think there are some Euro aspects to it as well.
Yeah, there's some
And
Euro
then
aspects to it. It's a heavy game. It's like a 3-4 hour game.
Yeah, and then there's a whole politicking phase. It's almost like
Warrior Knights or
like
kind of thing.
diplomacy-ish.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
Okay.
you basically, the way Ed explained it to me, when he would play with his buddies, they would go off into separate rooms and
Negotiate
make
Oh,
their
wow.
deals, and then somebody would be like, "Hey, I want to talk to you," and they would go off into a room after you've already been in a room with somebody else, and they would make a better deal. But the first person would know, and they'd be like nervous the whole time because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, Ed talked to both Sam and John.
And the second guy could just pull you into a room and say, "Yeah, I got nothing, but let's sit here for a while and make everybody else do."
Yeah,
I mean, you
so,
just don't know.
I mean, there's so much. Again, haven't played it, but from what I've heard from Ed, that seems very intriguing and worth the time to try to figure out.
It's not a perfect match because there's a lot of conflict, but I think it just sounds like such a cool experience. I really want to try it, and I had the opportunity to buy it, so
you own it.
I own it.
Oh, okay.
All right, great.
That makes it a whole lot easier to queue up then, doesn't it?
I don't think I listed anything I don't own.
All right, so Chris, number 9, StarCraft.
Yep, StarCraft. This copy of this game was given to me by John several years ago, and it's a epic game. It also has a lot of conflict in it.
Very conflict heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
We actually played this.
we played this
Recently.
at the May Gameathon.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I had the best showing. I kind of made a really dumb move, and that kind of crippled me a bit.
Well, it's okay. You also sandbagged me and made it so I had no shot at influencing the end game at all.
Yeah, and Jeremy kind of snuck in there, and we just
The
we
map-
didn't really pay attention
The
to what
map
happens.
setup was weird.
Yeah, it was. So I'd like to bring it out again and see where it goes.
You know, it's curious. I mean, your post game show, even here in brief, shows that there was enough variability in the game that from play to play, you can really get a very different play out of StarCraft.
It was very different from either. I think Samurai had played before.
I'd never played it before.
It was very different from.
I think I definitely want to doctor the map setup a little bit next time because the random generation or the quasi-random generation didn't really give us an interesting.
Yeah, but that goes
setup.
to what John was just saying. It changes the gameplay.
Yeah.
But
There's random, and there's also like guided random.
Right,
Like the way that I
yeah.
make Thunderstone setups is guided randomness.
Yeah, I think with a little bit of guidance, we would have gotten a much more interesting setup than what we did.
So this is a Fantasy Flight games game from 2006, 2007,
Man, Fantasy Flight
2008,
made a
something
lot of
like
good
that.
games.
Yeah, this is one of those larger-than-life coffin box games where they got the license and did big stuff with it.
Lots of nice little pieces in it. And
Yep.
it's a
Yeah, I
fun one to
didn't
get
put
out.
World of Warcraft on this list, but it should have been. It would have been my
World of Warcraft, the board game.
the board
yeah.
game or the adventure game. Honestly, they're both really good.
Yeah.
They're completely different, but they're a lot of fun.
But
What's
they
your
did
number
not
9,
make the
Steven?
list.
So number 9 for me is Galaxy Trucker.
Ugh.
Yeah. So Galaxy Trucker is it's kind of it's got a real time phase where there's a bunch of pieces in the middle of the table, and you just start snatching and trying to slot them together into your ship to make something that flies and
gets destroyed.
and picks up
Can
picks up,
possibly be destroyed.
picks
Depends
up-
on how you build it.
it flies, it picks up goods, it possibly gets destroyed,
It is-
or it limps across the finish
It
line.
lives across the finish
So
line.
I don't-
It's always a misadventure. The question is just how bad is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't dislike games with a real time component.
Mm-hmm.
They can be fun, but I find it really hard to take them seriously.
This is not
this
made to be
game is
serious.
completely not serious at all.
You're
Like
building
once
a
you
spaceship that pieces of it are going to fall apart
And you're a
before you get to
rulebook
the
guy.
destination.
If you want to read a lighthearted rule book, Galaxy Trucker is the rule book to read.
I do
mean,
enjoy a lighthearted rulebook.
Yes.
yeah, and it's only it's 4 pages long. It's
Okay.
a real simple game, and it's so lighthearted that anyone that plays this game seriously is doing it wrong.
Yeah.
If you're not cackling at John's ship getting split in half by a small asteroid,
or your own.
or
Yeah.
your own even.
Yeah.
Mostly John's.
Yeah,
You're doing something wrong.
You have to understand that you are not going to succeed. The goal of the game is to fail less than all the other players.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so John, your number 8 is Crokinole.
Yeah. So Crokinole, which can be played 4 players, so we could set that board down right here in the middle. You play with teams across the middle. For anybody who hasn't played Crokinole, it's a disc flipping game. It was invented in Canada in the 1800s, and it's kind of this cult game that once you've played it once, you're like, yeah, got to get me one of those.
I just don't understand how every bar doesn't have one of these
Yeah.
set up on its bar, on the bar
Yeah,
top.
just hang it on the wall, and people would bring it down if you had it set up in
It's
your
like
bar.
there should be a dartboard and a Crokinole
Yep,
board in
yep.
every bar.
In every beer hall, everywhere,
And-
it's perfect for that.
Do you feel like this is a board game?
That's what I was just thinking. I was like, does this count as a board game?
It's a dexterity game.
It is.
Is it a board
I mean,
game?
it keeps
though?
a
board, and it's a game.
Like, is darts a board game?
Is tumbling
Wow.
dice a board game? I guess it is.
Tumbling dice is a board game.
Okay.
They don't call them board games anymore. Now they are tabletop games.
Tabletop,
And it
because
is definitely
because-
a tabletop game. And
I'm just saying, I think most people would not necessarily identify this as it's a game, but I don't
I
think
got to
people
pick a
would-
number 8. This is my number 8. It's
All right.
Crokinole. It's a
I mean,
game
it's
that,
fun.
like I said,
I've
once
played it. I've
yeah.
enjoyed it. John handily wiped the floor with me.
But next time you play, you will be much better.
But I had
And
a good time.
And
All
I'll
right.
tell you this. Get a copy. I don't care how cheap the board is. Make it out of cardboard, and you will have a good time with this game. It does not have to be some fancy $600 board with custom art on it. Just get a board and go play. It's that much fun. That's why I want to bring it out and have us talk about it
Sam,
while we play.
Sam, your number 8 is Level 7 Invasion, the first of 2 of your Level 7 games.
Yeah, it's a whole universe of level 7 games. Level 7 Invasion is fun for me because
Yeah, but
it's,
is it a game, really?
Is this the cooperative one?
it's a cooperative one.
It
yeah,
is,
cooperative games
those
aren't
aren't
really
games.
games.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're puzzles or activities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're pastimes.
I enjoy cooperative games. There are some people who are very conflict averse. I don't mind conflict, but sometimes you don't want to, sometimes it's nice to cooperate with people.
Mhm.
And Level 7 Invasion does that really well. Everyone's playing a different coalition of nations on the globe, and you're working together to fight off an alien invasion that just kind of progressively gets worse until you can complete your science MacGuffin.
So the tagline for all cooperative games should be, and then it gets worse.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly.
'Cause-
It's the bad news deck. Whatever game you're playing has something that issues bad news to you, and you just have to deal with whatever that rains down on you.
Level 7 Invasion has that in spades. Every round, everybody has to pick 2 bad things to happen from cards that only they're allowed to look at. And it gets rough.
Yeah, and there's no hidden traitor or anything like that. It's a legit co-op game, and actually, I got to admit, I enjoyed it. Now, it's big. It's not a game you're going to knock out in an evening in an hour and a half. So it's something you need to set up and make. It's going to be an event. But for that for that larger than life sort of game, I think it's a good choice. I enjoyed it.
All right, Chris, tell us about Terraforming Mars, your number 8.
Terraforming Mars. It's an excellent game, but you will notice that on here I do not have Terraforming Mars and all of its expansions. I enjoyed the game Terraforming Mars until we brought out the United Nations or whatever it was.
Coalition.
On to Venus, include Mercury,
Yeah,
go to Saturn,
it
move
got
into the
diluted.
stars.
It changed everything. It kind of just warped the core game.
Yeah, play
So
it with Prelude and...
Yeah, there's the Prelude, which is really great, and there's the Venus expansion and the colonies and the
Yeah, let's just play with the Prelude and leave it at
Politics,
that.
the sun.
fun, and there's a lot.
I know a lot of people out there have played Terraforming Mars.
I mean, we've played a lot of Terraforming Mars. There was a period of time where it was on a table every week that we had game night.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
And-
were typically running 2 tables at that point. We had enough
And
people.
I think up until probably the last 2 or 3 times we've played Wings for the Baron, it was our number 1 face-to-face game.
I think so, yeah.
So it's it's one we're all very familiar with, and it's something we should probably talk about at some point.
Well, and that's sort of a question: is what brings it to the podcast? Why? I mean, this is a pretty universally known game, and I'm just trying to decide if that's. It's certainly a Hall of Fame game. I'm just curious why you picked it for this list as opposed to something that maybe is a little more unknown or interesting for.
I like
unique
it
ways.
because that it is a well-known game. I like hearing the playback of the game and the table talk. That was the whole reason we started doing the podcast, was because of the talk that we
the
had.
post game show.
The post-game show.
Yeah.
It's all about the conversation. It's not really like a review we're trying to spotlight certain games like Wings for the Baron, but at the same time, these are games that we have enjoyed and
that we're just playing anyway.
And we're just
So
playing
may as well
anyway,
talk about them.
and why not talk about a game that you enjoy playing?
Yeah.
You enjoy playing, and it's different. Just about every single time, you can choose a different path that you want to go down.
I just love the nerd tech, and I'll be honest with you, I never go after the biology stuff because I'm like, it's icky. I'd much rather be like smashing comets into the planet to get water there. I mean, that's cool. So I always find that I'm playing. I couldn't care if I win or lose.
Yeah.
I just want to do something cool.
You tell yourself a cool story.
Exactly.
I don't know. I think Terraforming Mars, has come and gone for me, but we
One
can
more
probably
time.
we can get some interesting conversation out of it.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sure.
it's no scythe, that's for sure.
Oh God! All right,
Scythe, I don't think is on anybody's list.
so. Starting with the
Oops.
number 7s, my number 7 is Tomb.
Not a game.
Why is
So
Tomb
don't
not a
believe it.
game, Chris?
So Tomb's actually the reason that I. This is the game that brought us all together. I mean, John and Chris have been playing together forever.
Is this like the second or third game that has brought us all together?
No, this is the original one that he was sent to
So
games and stuff to demo.
I used to work for
Okay.
AEG as a demo monkey at Origins and Gen Con, and the first board game that AEG ever produced was Tomb. And part of my service to AEG was to go to local game shops, which was Games and Stuff, and play it with people to try to, sell it
Generate
to them.
interest, yeah.
And I believe I played it with John. Chris wanted to play. He kept looking at it and was like, oh, that looks neat. But I'm hosting this event, so I have to be host. And never got to play it.
Never. I don't even think it's a real game.
So this game
You
is...
still have not played it.
I still have not played it.
Since it came out in like 2009.
How is
yeah,
that possible?
2009. Yeah. Like every time it comes out, some reason Chris either isn't in town.
You own it, don't you?
Right, or for some reason he can't make
Is
that
there a
session.
copy here?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's my copy. I left it here.
Yeah, so
To taunt you.
But mention the secret to the way we play is that there's a whole bunch of cards that got shot underneath the insert inside the box, and never have they seen the light of day again.
Yeah, so essentially, I was on the playtesting crew for this as well. I did several playtesting games, gave a lot of playtesting notes as to things that I thought were wrong with the game and didn't work, and just grammatical errors, and they were largely ignored. So remembering what all of those changes were, when I finally got a retail copy of my own, I made the changes myself. And through the years, as we've played, we've further culled the deck and have basically turned a game that had a very heavy take that aspect, which really draws out the game and really doesn't add any fun. We've kind of culled all that, and what we've ended up with is a pretty fun, just get in,
push your luck,
kill everything, and get out with as much as you can carry
before somebody else.
This
can
is like
beat you
dungeon
to it.
crawler, like the dungeon crawl where you go in and you go into the rooms and you kill monsters and get treasure, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And
exactly.
so the person to your left is playing. When you go into a room with monsters, the person to your left is playing
Your
the
opponent.
monsters.
Yeah.
And to me, that's enough player interaction. I don't need thieves that go around stealing and murking other players. All that does is drag out the game. I don't need wizard spells that lock the door to the inn and don't let people go in and refresh them
and do what they want to
and
do.
do what they need to
Right.
do. I don't need those cards because they just extend the game and make it less fun.
Yeah.
That's Tomb.
Tomb is just one of those games where sometimes I have to be someplace else, like a finance meeting or someplace else, and it comes out.
When we play for the podcast, we'll make sure Chris is there, and we'll have a lot to say about it.
I'll believe it when I see it.
I really think that we need to time it to where he's not here. Like next week when he's out of town, that's when we need to play this one.
I'm here next
kind
week.
of like a fun inside joke for everybody except Chris, where it's cruel and somehow
Sounds
nasty.
like a great game. I'll listen to the podcast. It's not a game.
If only Chris were here, he would love this.
Oh gosh!
All right, so John,
and then when we send him pictures, that makes it that much worse.
Yep.
What game is that?
So John, your number 7 is Heat Pedal to the Metal.
This is another one we've played a lot of recently.
We have played this recently.
We
More to
even
the
did
point,
it for the podcast.
We did it for the podcast, but it was our first play ever. And it's funny, I just re-listened to the podcast, and one of the points we're making is, hey, for the first time out of the gate, this was actually kind of cool. Maybe we should play this some more. And I think now we all have gotten at least one more player under our belt, and we've started getting a better understanding of exactly how everything works. So I think maybe a few more plays even before we move on to actually doing the one that we do on the podcast. But it'd be nice to come back to this now that we've got a whole lot more experience with it. And frankly, our takeaway from it the first time we played, everybody was very positive on it. So that's cool.
Yeah.
And I think all of that has been reinforced from the plays that we have done since then.
Yeah, I mean, we played like a basic no special cards game. Had a lot of fun with that. And then we played like the first race of a campaign, which we had every intention of playing the 3 races, but time got away from us and other things were happening. So even that first race, we did the weather rules.
Did the weather rules, the sponsors were
the
in
sponsors. There. So we did everything that we could except for the garage because it doesn't play with the campaign, with the season race.
Right. And we pulled a special card to start.
That was part of the campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the campaign and the sponsors.
Yep.
So, I mean, we were playing the game full bore, like with all the rules, and it was, I mean, still a lot of fun.
Yeah,
so
in fact, I think it added to it.
Oh,
It
definitely.
gave
It definitely
gave it some
did.
nice flavor.
Just having those car upgrades where you can do one thing just a little bit better than everybody else, and then you can figure out where on the track it makes sense to do that.
Yeah, and when you pick up a sponsor card, that gives you a nice little special rule. It's just a onesie; you get to use it one time. But that was a nice addition too. So I think there's a lot to this game, and one of the things I said was there's a nice kit here where you can start doing a lot of other things, and I think that still very much applies. So
I think the advanced rules will be an interesting addition.
Yeah.
All right, Sam, your number 7 is Leaving Earth, which also happens to be John's number 4. So let's go ahead and knock that out. Leaving Earth. Tell me about Leaving Earth.
So Leaving Earth is a game about the space race, right? It's mankind is just discovering space travel, and you're trying to leave Earth and be the first one to reach orbit, to reach the moon, to reach Mars, and even further. And there's a lot of really cool things here. Of particular note, I think what everyone I know who enjoys the game likes talking about how technology works, where you pay to invent a new type of rocket or something, right? So you get and it's all the historical names for the rockets and the
Atlas
capsules
and Gemini
and whatnot. And
Saturn V.
Yeah, I can never remember what they're
Soyuz
called.
and
You get your rocket, and when you use it, you have to flip over from a 3-card deck to see if it works or if it blows up.
And you don't know what those 3
And
cards are.
you don't know what they are. They could all be successes or they could all be failures. But you don't know until you actually purchase the rocket part and launch it. And so once you've launched it and you flip over a card, you can pay to remove that card from the deck, or you can just put it back in. So you play this interesting game where it's like, okay, I drew a success. Do I want to burn the success to make sure they're all successes? Or do I load up a multi-year mission to Mars and trust that none of these rockets are going to explode?
And find out that your life support didn't
Right,
work properly.
and find out that you have 2 successes and 1 major failure, and you've just gotten lucky every time except for the final leg of the journey. And then you can trade your technology with other players. So you might say, well, you can buy this technology from the bank, or you can get it from me, and I've already made it so that it works perfectly.
Yeah, so there's a bartering aspect to it. There's
a lot of math.
There's a lot
Say
of
hello
arithmetic.
to math.
Right, it's a lot of logistics. Is that you need to figure out how to make things work, and it's moving through multiple steps. So if you want to land on the moon, you got to figure out how much weight you need to get down to the moon in order to get back up from the moon, and then you need to carry that much weight to the moon, and so on and so forth. And you start. None of it's difficult math, but there's just enough steps that it forces you to have some level of organization. So there's an engineering nerd aspect to this, a project
really
management nerd to this, and then there's this honing of your tool. You decide, I'm going to buy the Saturn V. I get 3 cards. All could be failures, all could be success. Every time you use it, you turn over 1 card, and if you want to, you can burn away all 3 of those cards, and you now have a perfect Saturn V rocket that you never have to worry about.
That's going to work every time.
But that's going to cost you money, and you need to decide. I've got, the Saturn V feels good. It's probably right. I need to be spending money on an Apollo capsule instead. And those are the kinds of things.
Money and time, right? Because you run into the situation where it's like, it's the first person to the moon gets the points.
It's a race to the moon.
So
it's the first person in
I
orbit.
launch a turn before John because he perfected his rocket, and I get lucky.
That counts
I
as
get the
your
points.
Yep. And what's nice is okay. And I always complain about catch-up mechanics, but here's the kind of thing where if Sam's running away with the lead, Chris, Steven, and I start saying, okay, I'll give you a rocket, you give me rendezvous, you take a capsule. We make this all work, and we can start bartering pieces and the like and work together.
And part of it is that you can see, okay, John's going to make it to the moon before I do, but he's committed all of his resources to that. So now I'm going to pivot.
Yep.
And go for something else.
Right. Probe to Mars, something else that scores you points instead. So it's really neat. It's a historic aspect. It's got the whole engineering nerd aspect.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's a game that
it
really tells a story.
It made 2 of our lists.
Yeah,
I think it's the only one that did.
It might be. Yeah.
We made some edits. There were a couple other ones, but Chris,
but they didn't make the final list, so they don't count.
Your number 7 is Mississippi Queen.
My number 7 is Mississippi Queen. And I mean, this is one of the great games. If you haven't noticed, I do like racing games, particularly. Mississippi Queen is you're floating down the Mississippi in a steamboat. You're the captain. You're picking up ladies, and you're heading to the finish line. There's that explorer quality of it because you go to the edge of the map and you roll the die and you place a new river. And is it going left? Is it going right? Or is it going straight? And then you don't know what's in the river. It could be a sandbar. It could be an island. It could be something protruding. There's the one with the sticks that are coming out. So, I mean, Mississippi Queen, it's quick. It's fun.
Very light. I think it was an award winner. I think it won one of the big awards.
I think it has a couple ribbons on the box.
Yeah, it was a Spiel des Jahres in 1981.
No, it's not that old, is it?
No, it's not that old, but it is very old. It's 2004, 2005, if I had to guess.
It does have an expansion that
everybody's reaching for their
5
phone.
and 6. And
the Black Rose.
The Black Rose. Stephen and I at Gen Con, we purchased...
1997.
Okay.
Stephen and I at Gen Con purchased at an auction a copy of Mississippi Queen and the Black Rose.
Yeah, and you can do well without the Black Rose. Black Rose is a little hard to find. Without it, it's still a very good game, and it's light. It's the kind of game that you can bring out with kids. Yeah. There's not anything really hidden, so you can kind of coach. You can tell people.
Yeah, I don't normally like racing games. I'm sure we've discussed that at length. This one doesn't feel like a racing game. This one doesn't feel like a racing game to me. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, this one is begging for a reprint. I am shocked that nobody has put this one out in the last 30 years.
Has it not been reprinted?
It has not.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
One of the greatest things is the ending to Mississippi Queen always tells a story. Because it is, you are racing to spot number one, and you have got to be going a certain speed. And there is always somebody flying up behind you that is trying to take that number one spot.
Right. If they shove you one spot too far, suddenly you're going too fast, and you may not be able to stop. So there's a slam and bang aspect to it as well that makes it a whole lot of fun. And you're right. Not only does it tell a story, but all the games we're listing here, they all tell stories. I mean, there's real narrative. It's something all of us seem to agree on.
Well, I'm going to change that comment.
I'm not sure Quarriors tells the story.
Quarriors definitely does. But my number 6 is Dominant Species.
How does Crokinole tell
Dominant
the story?
Species has one of the greatest stories ever told.
I mean, for us, yes. But
For us, yes.
The game itself, I mean, it's about as dry as a game can get on this list.
Yes.
It's Tundra. It's
It
Tundra
is
dry.
It is Tundra dry, and the
Ice
Tundra
Age.
comes for you very quickly.
It's very fiddly, if I remember correctly.
So this is a game that what
does it play best with, Stephen?
So
Not me.
This is a game that is probably GMT's most successful not war game,
Okay.
and it's essentially
that may be the case.
It's essentially two games, kind of. You play two concurrent games at the same time.
Yeah.
So on the right side is the worker placement part, and on the left side is the
I don't know if it's
I don't
area
even-
control. I don't know what you call it.
I was going to say area control, but I'm not
It's
sure
not
that's
really area
it's
control.
not
It's
really
more
area-
like niche controls.
I don't know. It's crazy what it is, but it all works together really well, except at higher player counts, because what ends up happening is the worker placement part happens, and it all happens in order. So a spot that you may pick down towards the bottom of the worker placement could, by the time it gets down to that, could be just worthless.
Yeah.
Like you might put something down that says, I want to put my spiders in 3 different spots. And somewhere up the line, somebody kills all your spiders, so you can't move them.
Yeah, it steals all your food.
or
so it
steals
doesn't
all your
matter.
food.
You were going
or-
to that area for, yeah.
And when you're playing at 6, it's so chaotic. It's very difficult to make any kind of plans or even be tactical.
And it's curious because it's the game is sort of a heads down technical play where you need to make sure you get everything right, which is real common in worker placement.
Mm-hmm.
But especially with the higher player counts, it can be there can be these arbitrary factors of, and I'm going to call them luck. I mean, there's no luck in the game. It's everybody is making decisions, or no really particularly deep luck, but things can happen to you that are simply beyond your ability to control or predict that can have really, really breathtaking effects. So you can end up losing a chunk of a turn or even your position on the board that you have to make up for the remainder of the game.
I mean, there was a time where, well, this wasn't a 4-player game, but I had 4 markers to put out, and only one of them fired off.
Yeah.
Like I literally wasted an entire round.
Yeah.
Because all of the other people's choices negated everything that I did down the line.
Yeah.
I've played this several times with 3 and with 4, and I've enjoyed it for the brain burning that happens. But that 1 6-player time, we're never going to play this with 6 again. And
I don't think so.
We'll go into that when we actually do the recording for this. So, John, you're number 6. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the game.
Yes, and that is the official title. This is the version that came out in 2000. It was by Milton Bradley.
2001, Milton Bradley.
2001. Okay, I was close. Where you are running around, you've got one person playing the baddie. There's 4 different scenarios, and then everybody else is playing the cast of the original TV show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which you now need to be a little bit older to have actually seen on TV.
I've never seen it on
it
TV.
It was quite a cult classic at the time. It had a very unique audience. And it's just a larger-than-life play, and I'll be honest with you, I think it is perhaps the best pulp board game that has ever been published. From that mass market, going out to the general audience sort of games. It jumps off the table. It's got a real life to it. It's everybody has a little bit of a special capability, so everybody's playing the same rule set, but one person can go a whole lot faster. One person's better at attacking. One person's better at magic. And the idea is that you find ways to use your special skills and whatever you have stumbled across on the board in order to defeat whoever your opponent is. And I think just especially when you're playing with 4 or 5 people, the game really comes to life because everybody has their unique role, and it just
was a lot
jumps.
of fun.
Yeah, and when we played at the May Game-a-thon, we got it out 2 nights in a row. We played multiple sessions each of those nights because it was just it's the kind of game that after you play, say, yeah, I racked that up. Let's play it again. And it plays in maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, depending on how things go. It's not a terribly long game, and it sets up pretty quickly.
It's definitely got a Gonzo feel to it.
Yeah,
you can end the game on the first turn.
It could happen, yep. And don't plan on buying this game brand new because it hasn't been sold in stores for 20 years now, but there are so many used copies out in the world. You're going to find it at thrift stores. You're going to find it on eBay for just a few bucks. Don't worry about getting some pristine copy. It's an inexpensively produced game as it is. Get a copy that's complete. Have some fun with it. It's the kind of game that you're screaming and laughing and yelling at each other as you're playing. It's a lot of fun.
All right. Number 5 for Sam is another level 7 game.
It is level 7 Omega Protocol.
So this is the same as the other level 7.
So this is a
number
cooperative fighting off
actually
aliens.
in the same universe.
It's actually very similar to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You have one person playing the bad guys, and everybody else plays a character. In this case, you're not hunting vampires. You're delving into a alien laboratory trying to apprehend the mad scientist. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely heavier than Buffy is.
Well, obviously, everything is going to be heavier than Buffy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Buffy. But you have this interesting back and forth where as the players controlling the commandos move throughout the map and fight monsters, every action they take, they build up adrenaline. And then they give all of these adrenaline tokens to the player controlling the bad guys, who spends them to take actions and spawn more bad guys.
Okay, so that's a running gear from Lord of the Rings, the card game, or the TCG from Decipher. So essentially what happened is you've got one person's playing the Fellowship and the other person's playing the Dark, or whatever they call the
bad guys.
The bad guys. And the Fellowship could take almost as many actions as they wanted to. And when they would do that, they would hand power over to the dark player, who could then spend the same amount of power, but his abilities were typically stronger.
Yeah.
And so it was this whole, do I push it? Do I get Sam out, even though I'm going to give the ring race 4 power to play with? And
not this Sam, that Sam.
Yeah, Samwise, not Samuel. Yeah.
No, it's definitely not the first time that's ever been done. But I enjoy it because you end up with this back and forth of the commandos trying to complete things in as few actions as possible. And I really think, in interest of telling a story, you really do end up with a story where the commandos are keeping things under control, they're calm, they're collected, and then something goes wrong, and suddenly there's a big adrenaline spike, and everything continues to go wrong for the rest of the level.
So this is on a map?
Yeah.
With guys walking on the map, and you're rolling dice or throwing cards?
There are dice.
Okay, all right. I've never seen this one, so that's
I
interesting.
think I've played this. I don't believe any of you have played this.
I'll give it a shot.
But yeah,
I think you piqued John's curiosity.
You're controlling guys on a map. You roll dice.
Sounds space hulky too.
It is very space hulky.
It's on that line.
It is very space hulky.
Yeah.
So, Chris, your number 5 is Power Grid. Do you want to do this because you did so poorly last time?
Hey, I blame Ed for that. So
I mean, Ed did just as bad as you did.
He's
so.
right here.
and
So
I
do we
think-
just
I
want to
think-
come to consensus that everything was Ed's fault?
I
the
think
last
it was
time we
all Ed's
played?
fault.
I mean, everything was Samuel's fault, if you ask me.
Did I
I
win?
think we did
I think I did
misplay.
win.
We did misplay a rule that was pretty important. Kind of put Ed over on California by
And
himself.
gave Sam control of the fattest part of the board.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's a suggestion, so I can't say we did it wrong. We just should have ignored the suggestion.
Yeah, the suggestion we thought was a rule, so
Yeah.
I blame myself a little bit for that because
I blame whoever was reading the rule book at the time.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest with you, I do not recall who that was.
Yeah, I mean,
Who is it that likes to read rule books around here? Not anymore. 'Cause
you know
apparently
what?
he's not going to touch any more rule books.
Well, it's because this happens.
I would like to try it on a different map, just because it looks like
So we have Germany. What other maps do we
we have Germany, we have Italy, we have
we do have
The
Italy
U.S.,
and,
which
and
was what we
France.
played, right?
I think Italy is only 2-player.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Italy is only 2-player.
Oh, is
So
Italy
is
only
we-
2-player? Or is Italy best 2-player?
Who knows? We do have Germany, or France. What's on the
I
back
think
of?
they're both.
We have both.
What's on the
Okay.
back of the U.S.?
We have four maps.
I think it's
It's
Germany
gotta
is
be
on the
Germany.
back.
I think
It's
it's
a Germany
Germany.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
So-
it's the U.S. the U.S., Germany on one board, and then France and Italy on the other.
Yeah. So we've
Yeah.
got a couple options.
So we may revisit that one.
Yeah.
That's a game we haven't played in years and years and years. We played it and went, I wonder why we stopped playing this.
It's because
So it's
Chris
actually a pretty
always
good game.
won in the past.
Yeah, and we didn't want to.
Yeah.
So
Let
we didn't have
that-
to worry about that this time, did we?
So my number 5 is Imperial 2030, which oddly, or not oddly, but coincidentally, is a game that I typically win all the time, which I probably is why we don't play it as much either. This is a Matt Gertz Rondell game that I find fascinating.
Another game with virtually zero luck.
Oh, there
in
is
fact,
no-
there may be truly zero.
That is
luck
a
in this
truly
game.
zero luck game. The only luck is where you are sitting in the player order to have your starting.
You're starting.
You're
euros.
starting shares. You're starting
shares. Yeah.
So it's like you might luck into being in China to start off with, or you might luck into being in.
And frankly,
and
if
Brazil.
you wanted to, you could negotiate who gets to start where. So
Yeah.
you could even take that out
John,
of the
how
picture.
do you
if you
feel about Imperial 2030?
You know, so I bought Imperial 2030 was a Christmas gift years and years and years and years and years ago, and I could never get anybody to play it. Y'all looked at it and y'all said, well, it's a big flat box, therefore it's not good because good games only come in square boxes, and we never played. So finally I'm like, I came late one day and you guys were playing something else. I said, you know what, I'm going to get it out, and I'm going to, because the rule book comes with a sample starting game where it plays like the first 2 or 3 times around the board, so you get to see how it works. And then they encourage you to say, hey, if you like, just pick up where you left off because now you know how to play. So I sat down. Steven came just a few minutes later. He sat down. I said, okay, help me with this. I got to figure out how this works. And the two of us were looking at this. By the way, when we got to the sample, at the end of the sample play, we're like, hey, this rock and rolls. We should play this. And between the two of us, we were able to kind of push this through. And then suddenly everybody was deciding, yeah, this is a cool game. And at one point, there was a night when I couldn't make it for whatever reason, and I hadn't left the game here or anything. It was at home. And one of the other people in our group purchased the game so that you could play that night. So it got that much fire going on underneath it that the game ended up getting played. So we ended up with 2 copies for a while, but we backed off of it. I don't think we've played it in a few years at this point.
Yeah, and so you got rid of your copy because there was the other.
There's the other copy, yeah.
And now that copy is no longer a part of our group. So I had to then go and purchase.
So
another
we're on our
copy.
3rd copy.
So we're on our 3rd copy of Imperial 2030. Sam's over here shaking his head. Why are you shaking your head?
It's not a game that I enjoy.
Have you played it?
I have played it several times.
Okay.
It's not a game that I enjoy.
It is so Sam, though.
There's no conflict. Oh, wait. Yes, there is.
There's tons of conflict.
Tons of conflict. There's no luck. I think that's probably.
There's no dice that you need to control. I mean, you have ultimate control.
It's just not a game that clicks for me. I don't know.
I think the part he doesn't like is like you take in one army into a place where there's one army and they both go away.
There's nothing particular about this that I don't like. I just maybe
it's
just
because you don't actually own anything on the board. Like,
frankly, I think it's because it's depressing.
Wow. That's curious. So thematically, the game has enough of an impact on you that you don't want to play it.
Yeah, it really.
Isn't that interesting?
that is
It
interesting.
shows. So just goes to show that sort of part of a game can have that kind of impact on somebody playing it.
I just you're not really invested in these countries. You don't care about anything there. You care
but
about
you're
making
trying to
money.
get all the money.
Yes,
from
And
it.
I
you
just
sell them
squeeze-
out down the
You
river.
just exploit everything for
Squeeze
as
them like
much
a
as you can.
Yeah.
And it's
Throw the
And
husk away.
what's not to love about that?
it's depressing.
That
It makes me
sounds
sad.
amazing.
Wow.
It's just my soul dies a little bit every time. And I'm like,
There's-
You really
Yeah.
have to be able to detach yourself from the country that you
I'm
are
not good at that. I'm
influencing.
like,
Yeah.
oh, This is
No, on the other hand, I'm like, oh, China? Okay.
So it violates the "this is me, these are mine" rule, because there is nothing about this game that you truly own except for the dollars in your hand. Everything else is something that is fully negotiable that you could just flush away at a moment's notice and turn it into cash.
And to be honest, I think I'd be fine if you did own, like, if you were betraying your country and like siding with another one.
You'd be okay with that.
I'd be okay with it because you're still like committing to something. It's just
and you sure you want that to be recorded and put out on the internet?
Given who you work for.
Well, look, it's just the fact that all you're attached to is the cash, and that's all that matters. That makes me sad.
I mean,
okay, he's back in good with the Republican half of the country at any rate.
So we've
And
talked about leaving
frankly,
Earth.
it's too realistic.
Wouldn't that be the Democratic part? He's the Republican.
The cash and run? No, I'm saying,
I'm saying I don't like that.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Oh,
but,
okay.
but when you mentioned that, well, okay, that's fine. Yes, we did talk about leaving Earth. The only thing I would add to leaving Earth, from my personal perspective, if you're a tech nerd kind of guy, it's just a great game from that perspective. So,
And there's a bunch of expansions.
And it's
there is.
extremely hard to get from what I've...
It's hard to get from the people that can make all the copies they want, oddly enough. So yeah, if you see a chance to get a copy of this used, or somebody's looking to trade it away,
I mean,
grab
they're
onto it.
still making it. They're just apparently bad at
They're just
fulfilling
very
the
slow
orders in a
about doing
timely
it.
fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they make it when they want to,
Yeah, so,
regardless
you
of how many people want to buy
I
it
got
from them.
mine in excellent time.
By dumb luck, you ordered the game just when they were making sets, and you actually got one. And when you told me, oh yeah, I already got it, I'm like, wow.
I
really
ordered
lucky,
it
dude.
and got it like a week later, and apparently most people wait months.
So in
I will
current-
cut that just so that you don't come
Get
under
hate
the
mail.
ire of...
You don't want to get doxxed because of all the angry people out there.
Are there
But-
that many angry Leaving Earth fans?
oh gosh, there's thread after thread
After
about people,
thread.
and
on
these
Reddit,
days,
on BGG.
these days you purchase a game and it doesn't show up at your house for like 2.5 years, and that's considered normal. And these people do it, except they're a little more upfront about it. They say, yeah, we're going to take your money and we have no clue when we're going to produce it. And they don't make you any promises or anything like that. And eventually it shows up. I don't know of anybody that has ever gotten stiffed on it. It just takes them a long time to get around to doing it. So it's kind of an odd game that way.
I do want to pick up the Stations expansion. I haven't yet because it's...
I have just the base game, and I think I'm going to stick with just the base game, at least for now. And the expansions are easier to get because enough of those copies are out in the wild that you can purchase
Well, I
those
think
easily enough.
just the base game actually has one of the expansions in it.
Yeah, it
doesn't
comes with Mercury.
It comes with the Mercury expansion. I like the stations. Like, space stations are cool.
Yeah, no, I'm
That's
I'll
it.
try them.
That's it. Space stations are cool.
All right, Sam. Your number 4 is Trade on the Tigris. Now,
Yeah.
I've never heard or seen this one.
I
I've-
bought this game from John.
Yes, you did.
So y'all have played
the
it.
three of us have played it.
Yeah.
I guess you
I
didn't.
have played it.
Yeah.
I got it in a raffle, and it's kind of this. There's a real time aspect to it, like Pit, where you're negotiating and trading with anybody else at the table, and you're kind of flipping cards around. I'll give you this for that, and so on and so forth. And then at the end, you kind of play out your cards to see what you can score out of them.
Yeah, so I really enjoy this game because you're developing your civilization, and there are like 2 main tracks that you purchase upgrades from. And there's a political track where you can go towards one extreme or the other, and there's a religious track where you can go from one extreme to the other. And so you can choose between, I think it's like democracy and autocracy, and then like a peaceful religion and a violent religion. And the upgrades are totally different. But you can mix and match, right? And so you end up with everybody has kind of their own blend of what's going on, and they're trying to do different things to score points. And
Bit of unique culture for each player
Yeah,
as it progresses.
it's really interesting. I really enjoy it.
Chris, your number 3 is The Adventurers.
The Adventurers. I mean, This game is awesome. It's a great portal game to get people drawn into playing board games. I am a huge Indiana Jones fan.
I was gonna say, is this the one with the temple? And you go through
Temple of
and
Jack.
Temple. I mean, I've seen all of Harrison Ford's Indiana Jones movies. I mean, you come in, you're immediately in a room where the walls are closing. You run out, you have a boulder chasing you, and you come across, and you can either cross across the lava pit, or you can work your way around. You can try and pick up treasure on your way, and then, or you can jump out the river and make it out the temple before the boulder closes you in. So it's fun, it's excitement, it's got that.
You get
it picks up your
push your
pace.
luck
It pushes your luck.
And lots of dice rolling.
There's betrayal. And
there's so
tragedy.
many stories that we have where it's like, I was on the bridge and it fell apart on me, or I was in the river and I didn't make that jump and I went over the waterfall, or I made it out just one step before the boulder slammed in shut.
Or even better, you are on the bridge that everybody else wants to use behind you, and you jump up and down on the rickety bridge to break it so that it's just barely holding up, and then you take off so that the next person blows through it instead.
And they have to go around the long way.
Yep, they have to go around the long way with a boulder on their butt, or they're trying to figure out how to undo the one trap to get some piece of treasure, and you just walk up and go, nope, it goes like this, ding, bing, bing. You pull the treasure and you take off, and they're stuck standing there holding nothing. So
it's a quick, fun, exciting game.
So number 3 for me.
Steven?
Lost my place on the list there. Eminent Domain. So Eminent Domain is like one of my favorite deck builders other than Thunderstone.
Which one's Eminent Domain?
So Eminent Domain is that space deck builder that we played on BGA a lot during the pandemic.
Oh, the one you always win.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember
because I played it a lot more than y'all did. I mean, I probably have 200 games on BGA.
Yeah, I remember it now. Yeah.
So this...
I was agreeing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So this one was an early Kickstarter. It was also one of, I think, Tasty Minstrel's first games. And it's just essentially a deck builder where instead of buying cards to add to your deck, every time you take that action, you take a card into your deck. And then when you take actions, if you have copies of those cards in your hand, you can play them down to strengthen that action. And it was just a really interesting way to do a deck builder that hadn't been done before at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So everything was a Dominion clone until...
And this was very different.
And this was very different.
Is very different.
Yeah,
don't want to
still
bury
is.
it.
And so I really like it. It's one of my favorite games. It's why it's my number 3 on this list, and it's why I played it so much on BGA during the pandemic time. So Eminent Domain, I would like to get that played.
I think we can do that one.
John, your number 3 is Maria.
Maria, and this is where I get old and crotchety and boring, and when it comes right down to it, I do have a couple of very conflict-heavy games on this list, including Maria, and we played it at the May getaway weekend.
I enjoyed it. It's got this really cool mechanic of, the deck of cards is essentially, it's 2 through 8, hearts, clubs, spades, and diamonds.
Right, it's the 4 suits, and depending on where you are on the map, you play the different cards. So this is a 3-player war game, and you play it 3-player. Don't play it any other number, and it's all 3 factions have to work against the other 2 factions, and if anybody doesn't hold their share, then I'm sorry, I'm boring you two over here. Sorry about that. But
we're just playing rock, paper, scissors to see who gets to be the third person.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, it's whoever doesn't show up on game night is what it boils down to. But there's a historic aspect to it which I enjoy. I personally enjoy war games where you're going head to head, so I don't mind beating people up, and that's as long as that's how the game is played. This is an incredibly well-respected war game. Gets great reviews, and it's very unique, very card-driven. There's no dice in the game. You essentially have a hand of cards, and you keep adding cards to add strength, the amount of people that you're putting into battle. And part of the key of the game is to not overextend. It's okay to lose a battle. You want to lose a battle by just a little bit, and by being on that losing side, you get to decide when to withdraw, and that is the magic of the game, is that ability to understand it is time for me to get out of this. I don't want to spend any more. I don't want to tear up my armies. If you can figure that part of the game out, you can really succeed. And there's some political intrigue tracks where you're able to move things with bidding and things like that add some flavor to the game as well.
Is this a newer game, or it's been around for a while?
I think it's been around about 20 years. So
2009.
No, yeah, it's not terribly new, and it's a remake of a game called Friedrich, which is essentially the same basic concept. Maria tunes it a little bit better and balances things out. Both games are very well respected, but it's one of those games that you figure out who the two people you're going to play with, and you're like, okay, we got to pick a date, and we got to make sure we got the time, and let's go to dinner first, and it becomes an event. I mean, it's a game that really sort of has a larger than life aspect when you sit down to play.
All right, Sam, your number 2 is XCOM.
Yeah, XCOM, the board game. I really like XCOM.
You like XCOM, the computer game.
I do.
You're a huge fan of that, right?
I'm a huge fan.
The
of,
OG or the new one?
The new one.
Okay.
I mean, the OG is fun as well, but I really fell in love with XCOM Enemy Unknown, and then the expansion and XCOM 2, and they're a blast. But we're talking about the board game, which is based off of the remake. And I think it's unique on our list in that you do need the phone app to play. And speaking to availability, I'm not 100% sure if the app is still available.
What?
That could cause a problem.
No, you can get it. I'm just not sure it's still on the Play Store. It may be. I haven't checked. I still have it.
All right, so we'll figure that out.
Side loading.
At some point, we might scratch this number 2 out and add something else.
Only one person has to have the app, and I do. I also have the board game.
Don't break your phone.
It's a lot of fun. It is a cooperative game, but there's plenty of dice rolling. There's a lot of press your luck, where you're seeing how far you can push your resources against the aliens. And
so this is a war game, or this is a dudes on a map game?
Kind of neither. Like you set the board up, and there's 4 different roles.
Or is this like a resource management game?
It's more about resource management.
Oh, okay.
So you have 4 different roles, and like one person is the commander in charge of air defense, and so they'll spend money to put out fighter jets into the atmosphere over the different nations.
They have a budget.
Then you have a budget that everybody shares, and so you have to decide how much you're going to spend on buying fighter jets versus ground troops, and there's a different player who's in charge of the ground troops, who has to decide who to send out on a mission and who to send out to defend the base and who to use for what, and you roll the dice, and every time you roll the dice, you become more likely to fail and to get people killed. So you have to decide when.
Okay, so now it's sounding up again.
So
yeah, they were losing me there for a second.
So you
having a budget and sharing the budget.
But now that people are dying, I'm back there.
it's a very tight budget.
Yes. Sam and I played this
Chris has
together.
played it, and I think we had a good time.
I enjoyed it, but I do think it would be better with 4 people, because I think we each were playing 2 roles.
Yeah, it does play a little bit better with more than 2. But it's very much press your luck. There's a scientist where you're trying to upgrade through a tech tree, and there's even dice rolling involved in that. I enjoy it. It's a cooperative game. I enjoy cooperative games.
But all right, Chris, your number 2, Lords of Vegas, which we've covered, but you want to play it with Up, the expansion.
We played it several times with just the base game, and I think Sam and I agreed after the last time we played that we really wanted to try the expansion for it.
I don't know what the expansion does, but I love expansions.
Yeah. So, I mean, Lords of Vegas is a game that I've always enjoyed.
Just you're messing with perfection. I'm just saying.
The
Mona Lisa needs a hat.
John, you gotta raise your bar a little bit.
So here's my take on Up. So Lords of Vegas, as it is a up to 4 player game.
I think so. Yeah.
So when you buy Up, that allows you to play up to 6 players, 5 or 6.
Yeah, but we don't have two other people that we like.
And you need the up expansion to make room for those 6 people, because essentially what you do is when you have a casino, say like you have a 2 casino, you can pay to raise that 2 casino to a second level, and now it is a 4 casino.
Nice.
And so that is the basic running gear, in that you can get bigger casinos with less space. So a crowded map with more players becomes less crowded or more manageable, I guess
More
is
options.
the way to say it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is it going to work with 4 players with the expansion, or is that not the way to play it?
It might allow us to end the game by getting a 99 score. That is pretty much what it would do.
Nice.
Nice. I'd be
So
down
I
for
mean, it
that.
would be a higher scoring game. I think it would be fine.
But does it take the pressure off? Because a big part of Lords of Vegas is that you're bumping elbows the entire time.
So, all right, I think yes and no, because it's going to cost a lot of money to lift the casinos. And so with the last game, after we figured out you can only reorg one time, we had a bunch of money just kind of laying around, right? Like all of us were sitting on fat. I was sitting on fat stacks of cash, but
Some of us were doing very well.
yeah. So it's that whole like, is it cheaper to expand laterally or is it cheaper to expand vertically?
I
And
vote that we try it and then talk about how we feel.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm down with that.
And the bottom line is I'd like to play Lords of Vegas again.
Yeah. All right. So we're coming up on our number ones. And I mean,
Very exciting.
we've been doing the list, Stephen, John, Sam, Chris. So my number 1 is Thunderstone.
Really? Which
So-
version of Thunderstone?
Any version. Well, Thunderstone or Thunderstone Advance. The quest gets a little,
How many years has it been since we played Thunderstone?
I don't know, it's probably been like 5 or 6 years.
When did Thunderstone Quest come out?
Yeah, we did play Quest.
We played Quest like twice, and then we stopped playing Thunderstone.
So Quest made Thunderstone into a campaign game, which I wasn't really as appreciative of, because I like to just make a guided random setup and go at it. Like I also designed a couple of scenarios that you could play if you wanted to do like a setup, but the whole, you go in and then the next game the dungeon is only slightly different than the last time you played, and then you play your third game, okay, now the village is slightly different.
But
It's
I
like
feel
this
like-
progressive.
I feel like the fun of Thunderstone is seeing all the different cards and
Yes,
and
exactly.
exploring the dungeon. I don't
Finding
want
the mechanics
to.
that
I don't
work
want to
best
play with
together.
the same cards, but one of them's different now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, so that's essentially why I never really warmed up to Quest. All right, so number 1 for John is CNC Ancients, Command and Colors.
Ancients.
Wait, Command and Colors?
I thought it was
Yeah.
Command and Conquer.
I thought it was no. That's a video game.
That's a
isn't it?
video game.
Command
Is
and
this
Colors.
as fun as the video game?
It's more fun than the video game. I've never
That's
played
a
the video game,
statement.
so I have absolutely no clue. This is one of the Richard board games that all follow a basic pattern. I think there's, might be even 8 or 10 of them out at this point from all different eras of history.
And then Memoir 44
Is in there.
and
There's now
Battle
Tricorn,
Lore.
which is a Revolutionary War. There's a Napoleonic version of it. So it's and the original one was Battle Cry, which was American Civil War. So there's a whole bunch of them out, and I think there's a medieval out now too. So there's a bunch of stuff to choose from. I like Command and Colors Ancients. First of all, it's been incredibly successful, so there's all sorts of add-ons depending on what army you want to play. And of course, Ancients covers anything from like the fall of Rome earlier, so it's a huge piece of history. So you can be playing Romans, you can be playing the Persians, you can be playing whoever, and all of it is set up in actual historic battles, which I've already figured out from you guys is kind of my nerdy thing. But it's a dice throwing, very light war game. The board sets up quickly, the board plays quickly. I used to play this with my son; he loved it. And he would always play. He always wanted to play cavalry. He wanted to play fast. He wanted to hit hard, move on. I was more of a heavy infantry guy, great big thing in the middle and drive forward kind of. So you got the opportunity to put your personality into the play. As with any actual Ancients battle, you only need to lose a couple of units and you're toast because your entire army implodes and starts running, and then you get crushed. So these battles do not last long. It's got war elephants. It's got all kinds of crazy stuff that just make it a whole lot of fun. So that's why I picked it. It's a beer and pretzels kind of war game. It's very light. The rules level is very light, and it's just a fun play. Only plays 2, but that's how war games are, I suppose.
It sounds really interesting. Why do you have all these cool games that I've never played?
Because when I bring them here, nobody plays them. We go, no, there's 4 of us. We can't play 2 2-player games because that wouldn't be right. And I'm like, sure it is. We're sitting right next to each other at the exact same table. Nothing's different. Play 2 games sitting next to each other. We can have a great time. So, yeah, just let me know. Put the game on the list. Request it. It goes in the car, and it'll make it.
It sounds really cool.
Yeah.
But not as cool as Command & Conquer, the video game, which gave us this.
You're actually putting Tim Curry on our podcast.
I'm escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!
I think when you bring those games over, John, they go, "Oh, it's 20 years old. We need."
So we're actually going
He's
to
just
mean
so
this.
excited to escape into space.
And people don't want to do GMT games, and people don't want to do war games.
So Sam and I made our way through like a dozen of the Memoir 44 on BGAs.
Yeah.
So it's the same game. It's the same running gear.
Yeah,
It's
you'll
just-
recognize an awful lot of it.
Okay.
Yeah, if you've from that, you'll know exactly how to play CNC agents.
Okay.
Yeah, and my copy has custom dice, which is nice.
All right, so Sam's number 1 is Root. Chris, your number 1 is Firefly.
Yeah, I have an argument with passing over Root like that. 'Cause
All right,
I
let's
don't know that
go
I-
back and give Sam his due.
I don't know that I remember placing Root at number 1. But I did have it on my list. So I enjoy Root. I know you guys have all kind of played it and not enjoyed it.
Here's my problem with Root. It's a game that you have to play with the same people a number of times so that everyone is about the same level and on the same page. The problem that we've had is when we've played, somebody, either you or Cody, starts playing expansion characters because you guys have played the base characters enough that you feel like you can do that. What it ends up doing, though, is messing with the balance. It messes with the balance and the flow of the base game, which is what we need to learn to be able to appreciate the game.
Witness.
So I think if we are to play Root with you, it has to be all base characters or all base factions.
Okay.
but you saw the hesitation there.
Since when are we forging a deal on this? Who's we?
Yeah, I don't
I'm
think
just-
John wants to play again. I got to be honest with you.
Well,
I think
it
John's
doesn't matter what John wants.
We'll just do it tonight that he's not here and Cody's here.
Yeah, I'll just mention that Cody, last time we played, said, let's finish this up so we can go back to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That was
you
a
guys
direct
played
quote.
Oh.
it at the May Gameathon.
We did.
We did.
We did.
And as we were getting towards the end, he said, let's get this finished up so we can play some more Buffy tonight.
That's how we
So-
finished last year's May Gameathon. I left and you and Cody were still playing Root.
Yeah.
And Kevin, I think.
Yeah, we kind of came to the consensus that we enjoy it with
Just the two of you.
no with a smaller player count, with 3 or 4 rather than 5 or 6.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I would play it at 4 with, again, base characters, everyone playing base characters. Because if I'm playing the cats, like, I feel like I need the birds and the other whatever
There's the
they
Woodland
are.
Alliance and the Vagabond.
Yeah, I feel like I need those people on the board to have like the right
Balance. Mix.
Ecosystem's the word I was
yeah,
looking
yeah,
for.
the right
Thank you.
ecosystem.
So yeah, need to have the base 4 to have the right ecosystem for us to learn how to play
Okay. Well,
and appreciate and be able to appreciate it.
the next time I bring it, we will only play with the base factions.
Thank you. All right, Firefly. Let's end this on a high note.
Oh, talk about a high note.
On a
Firefly is our high note?
on a shiny note.
Firefly was a great TV series. Serenity was a great movie.
Sure.
Well, this is about the board game, not the movie
Yeah,
or the
and
TV
This is about
show.
the board game.
Anyway, it's a fine game.
Yes.
It's a fine game.
It's more than a fine game.
It's-
I'll be honest with you. In my conclusion, we played this at Big Game-a-thon again, and I think you were away at the time. But the conclusion I came to after playing it that time, and I didn't even win. I think I came in a close second. I was not the winner. But this is the best pirate game that has ever been invented.
Yeah.
And granted, its theme is set in outer space, but there is nothing that is actually a pirate game that holds a candle to your ability to just show up and commit crimes and steal stuff and take off. And this is how a narrative game is supposed to work. And we play with a whole bunch of the expansions, and you've got the rollout map that covers the entire space. And I think you really need that. But from that perspective, as larger than life games go, I think this is at the top of the stack.
Yeah. I think one of the best things we did was kind of like, it comes with scenarios that you can play, but we kind of went with the one, it's like, let's just set a dollar amount,
Yep,
the first
I agree.
person to get to there, because it really opens up the game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's, you find a ship, you get a crew, you find a job, you keep flying. And that's what it is. And there's fun. There's a lot of storytelling with it, moving the Reavers around, moving the Alliance people
Dealing with
around.
things going wrong, which always happens.
Always up to something no good. It's just you have to decide, am I going to be good? Am I going to be bad? You can play it differently. You can change halfway through.
All right, so that's our list. These are games that we all 88% enjoy. All right, so that's our list. Some of these we'll get to. Hopefully, we'll get to most of them. I think we've got a really good list here to work from.
Get some of them on a poll in the Discord and see if we can get some.
We do have the pick our play poll, so if there's something that we didn't call out and you think would be good for us to have a look at, keep an eye on our pick our play polls. We have one every month, and we allow you guys to pick the games that we play. The first one in May was Nexus Ops, and we had a lot of fun with that. And it looks like Escape from Atlantis is going to be the June game. I'll have the new poll going up soon. It should probably be up by the time this episode comes out. So go and nominate and vote.
Yeah, one of ours or one of your own.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Hopefully not too hard to find.
Yeah. All right, so that's it for us. Anyone have any parting thoughts on this list that we made? Give me my pen back. All right, great. Good night.
This, you realize that, right?
I mean, we got plenty to lose. It's fine.
Okay.
So
Especially when we get to the second level 7 game.
wait a minute.
This
Is that
is a
the
different
same
game. This is a different game.
Yeah, that's the same name, Sam. This makes no sense.
There's even other level 7 games.
Are they all different from each other?
Yeah,
or-
they're all totally different. They're not even the same genre.
interesting.
Then why do they all have the name level 7?
They're all set in the same universe, like fiction-wise.